In this tutorial, I will teach you some 3D modeling basics in Blender. First of all, this is the default cube, light and camera. I would suggest you to delete everything and start everything from a blank scene. In order to add a 3D object, go to Add. You can add mesh, surface, metaball, curve, text, or everything you see here, but I would suggest you to add a cube. Okay, this is a cube. In order to scale the cube, use S. To rotate, use R. And to move, use G. But right now, you have moved the cube in the viewport. In order to change the viewport to orthographic instead of perspective, click here, or use a numeric pad. Use numeric pad in order to change the viewport. You can select 1 for front, 3 for right, and 7 for top, orthographic. And now you can drag to rotate the viewport. Or you can use your mouse wheel, middle mouse button. Just click the mouse wheel and you can rotate the viewport. In order to zoom the viewport, you can go here. To move the viewport, use Shift and middle mouse button. To toggle the camera view, use numeric 0. But there is no camera in the scene. You need to add it. Go to Camera, and here is the camera. When you press numeric pad 0, you don't see the cube. Why? Because it's the default position of the camera. You have to move it. You can move it simply like this or by pressing G on the keyboard. And right now, you can see the part of the cube. I pressed numeric pad 0 and G in order to move that camera. And to make sure that I can see the cube, I will move the camera manually. Here it is. Okay. Now this button can toggle orthographic and perspective view. Because I want a 3D perspective scene, I will keep the default viewport. I won't use the orthographic viewport right now. Alright. Those are the transformation orientations. It is set to global. This is perfect if your rotation is 0. But if you rotate the cube and want to move it on some direction like this, and you want to move it in this direction, you need to change global to local. And here's what changes. It changes to local orientation, and you can move it according to the angle of your cube. So, this is perfect if you have an object that is rotated. Okay, let's go back, and you can also move the normals, which means if you rotate it, it will also behave like the local orientation. The view orientation only moves the object at the viewport. And if you change the viewport, you can only move it up and down, left and right. You cannot move it to the third dimension. So let's keep the global orientation of this object. In order to bring back the rotation, you can go to Item like this. Click and drag here, and in the rotation type 0 in X, Y, and Z rotations. Alright, let's bring it back to the 0 position. Right now I'm typing location 0 everywhere. Okay, this is the default position and rotation of the cube. Now, with the cube, you can scale it, rotate it, and even move it. In order to edit the points, faces, and edges of your cube, go to Edit mode. The default mode is Vertex mode. You can select vertices of every part of the cube, simply by clicking and dragging your mouse and selecting individual vertices. Alright, this is how it looks like now. I have changed those vertex positions. You can select multiple vertices, like this. And here's what happens. I selected multiple vertices and now they are moved according to this position. You can select edge. The edge select can choose both vertices at once. And if you select 4 edges, you select a face. The faces select minimum 3 vertices if you have triangular faces, or 4 vertices if you have a square face, like this. In order to move the face, use G on your keyboard. To rotate it, use R. To scale it, use S. You can extrude the face by pressing E on your keyboard, and you can extrude, and in order to stop it, just click left mouse button. Okay, in order to inset the faces, like not extrude all those faces which form the entire object, press I on your keyboard. That's the shortcut to inset faces. You can inset it even more, but let's keep the default inset face. You can extrude that face too, and you can do the same things that I mentioned before. Also, in order to separate a face from an object, use Y on your keyboard. Then you can move it, and here's what happens. You have separated the face. In order to connect it back, just click Alt on your keyboard and click Shift Alt on this part of the cube. And right-click and Bridge Edge Loops. Now you reconnected the entire object. In order to add new edges, which are called supportive edges, click Ctrl R on your keyboard, and you can move it manually or select the default position. You can add more supportive edges by pressing Ctrl R. You can also move them to the beginning. You can also move them and adjust them as you like. In order to add multiple supportive edges without pressing Ctrl R, press Ctrl B to bevel the edges. And here's what you get. You beveled the supportive edges. Okay, now those are some basic steps for modeling. Click A to select everything. Click H to hide the object. To unhide it, click Alt H on your keyboard. Click K to cut it with a knife. You can simply access it like this. Here is the knife tool. Click Z to change shading. You can select wireframe, rendered, solid, and material preview. You can also access them here. Click X to delete the object. Click C to perform circular selection. You need to go to edit mode in order to select circular. Click B for box selection, but you need to press ESC to cancel the circle selection first. Click N to hide the items bar. Click N to bring it back. And click M to merge. Select multiple faces and merge them. At center, here's what happens. At cursor, here's what happens. And collapse. This merges both vertices into one. Okay, so this is the 3D model that I have manipulated and added multiple faces, supportive edges, and more. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I want to make more tutorials for 3D modeling which include rigging, animation, and texturing. After a long break, I decided to bring more Blender tutorials simply because I think they are more important for future game creators like 3D modelers and asset designers. If you find this video helpful, consider subscribing. I will make more tutorials in the future. Have a good day.